Welcome, everybody, to Inside Boxing Weekly on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. Inside Boxing Weekly, as always, is brought to you by the Retired Boxers Foundation. Make sure you go check out Jackie Richardson and Alex Ramos on Facebook. And I am your co-host for Inside Boxing Weekly, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I would like to welcome in the author of Blood on My Notebook. Correct? Did I get the name right there, John Raspanti?
You always get the name right, Mike. I appreciate that a lot.
All right, so we're going to talk a little boxing, and we're going to start off with Oscar DeLaHoya, who's decided now that he wants to make a comeback. Do you buy this, John?
Oh, yeah, because it happens all the time in boxing. I wasn't particularly surprised. I remember hearing rumors 6 or 7 years ago that he wanted to do it, but then he was doing all kinds of other things, as we know, and that kind of detracts from doing the boxing thing. So Carlos Palomino came back at 48. Of course, Carlos was a much cleaner liver than Oscar, as we know. But, you know, this is what defines these guys. So it's hard to give up. And quitting when you're 35 and something you love, I don't think most people understand that. I especially when you love it like these guys, because it is what you are. And then you have to stop, and suddenly you're feeling good. You're only a few years older than that, Mike. You're ready to make a comeback all the time. You're telling me all the time you're ready to get back in the ring.
I'm ready. And if Deontay Wilder wants a fight, let's do it, Deontay.
There you go. See what I mean? So it's in your blood, you know. So it's not really that much of a surprise.
Well, my thing is this, though. The thing that really gets in your blood at that level is the attention. And I think these guys a lot of times miss the attention more than anything else. And I think it's also possible we see him train for 3 or 4 weeks and just say, well, it's obvious I can't do this. But he just got his name back in and he got the attention again. And that's really where I think this ends up, because the problem is this. We see a lot of comebacks from guys that are heavyweights. Usually the lower weights, you don't see as many of those guys come back. Carlos Palomino was an exception. And actually Palomino, when he came back, looked pretty damn good. If I remember right, he beat a guy that was in the top 10, knocked him out in the first round, and then he just retired. So I think it's a lot harder to do with a guy that's 154 or 160 pounds than it is with a guy like George Foreman, who's got a big punch when he comes back, or a Larry Holmes. I think it's easier for heavyweights to maybe last a little bit longer than the other ones. But I still don't buy that he's going to fight anybody. But I would love to see him fight Canelo Alvarez, and it may be the first time. It may be the first time I ever cheer for Canelo.
Well, yeah, and Carlos, you know, I talked to him about this a few months ago. He was only one because he was 4-1 in his comeback, and he lost his last one, and then he said, "That's it, I'm done." He was one fight away from fighting Oscar. If he had won that fight at the Olympic, which is ironic that he fought at the Olympic his last fight, he'd have fought Oscar DeLaHoya. So here we go all these years later, and look who's coming back at around the same age. I think, you know, anything is possible. I think what might happen more is that I think he might have one fight and then retire again. But yeah, if he said he's going to start sparring here in a few weeks, if he sees, even though then he says that, on the other hand, he said his jab is sharper than ever. What's he doing? Hitting the heavy bag or hitting the speed bag? That's not the same thing as hitting a person. So he knows that better than us, Mike. So if he's honest and he's got nothing, but he's bored, maybe he needs money. It would seem shocking, but that always seems to be a pattern with fighters. They need the money. But I think what you said was very valid. Attention is definitely something, and he's getting it right now.
Well, the quote I remember was 1999. I think it was the NBA player strike Patrick Ewing, where they asked him, you know, you make all this money, why do you need even more? And he said, you got to remember this. I'm a professional athlete. I make a lot of money, but I spend a lot too.
Right.
So, I think this. I think that if Oscar wants to come back, he passes the physical exam. I think he should be allowed to. You know, I think if Mike Tyson wanted to fight Tyson Fury right now, if he passes the physical exam, it's his life. He ought to be allowed to do that. It really annoys me when people sit there and judge these guys like, well, he's too old. He shouldn't be allowed to. I mean, you should never have to be allowed to do anything if you're physically fit.
Completely agree. If he wants to do this and he passed all the tests, right? He that's his life. He wants to do it. It is his thing. Like I said, it's his passion. I can understand that. I'm sure you can understand that part. Something you really love. Even if you're older, you still want to do it. You get yourself in good shape. he should be allowed. And I think there's no way anybody will stop him from doing it if he passes all the tests. So a lot of people will be second guessing him. Screw them. Oscar can do what he wants.
All right, so let's go ahead and let's look ahead to this weekend's fights, because this weekend, I think since, February or March, this is the first really big weekend for boxing. And we're going to start it off with Dillian Whyte against Alexander Pervetkin. This is a fight, to me, that's extremely interesting. Pervetkin, had a draw with Mike the Bounty Hunter the last time out. Actually, he didn't look too bad. Michael Hunter's actually a pretty good fighter. I think the Bounty Hunter was his dad, but what the hell? I'm old, so yeah, he's better than his dad. His dad was a decent fighter, but when you look at Povetkin, does he have enough left to be able to beat Dillian Whyte?
I think he does, Mike. I think he does. He's 40, right? But it just depends. If this is, here we go with the cliches. I hate them, but I use them. Every good fighter he's not a great fighter, but he's good, has one good one left. And this might be the time he has it. I think Dillian Whyte he can be beat. I mean, it's been proven that he can. I mean, obviously Anthony Joshua beat him, and he had buzzed Joshua a few rounds before that. So he's good, but he can be beat. I mean, you see flaws. Joseph Parker almost came back and stopped him when they fought. So he's good, but if Povetkin can hit that, if this was 5 years ago, I'd be thinking Povetkin's going to win. It's just that age thing, the wear and tear, all that. Povetkin didn't look very good against David Price until he knocked him out, which was dramatic. But you're right, he didn't look bad against Michael Hunter. So I think if he's going to look the best he can, if he can get himself to that point, it's going to be Saturday. And if he gets there, he's definitely got a real good shot of winning.
I'll put it like this: if it's 2012, I think Povetkin tears Whyte up.
Yeah, no, he was that good, and it's too bad he didn't get to fight your favorite fighter, Wilder, because he probably would have beat him, if that had ever happened. But that's unfortunate for Pervetkin with the steroid thing and everything. And Whyte's got the steroid thing too, so it's a battle of steroids in a sense. But I think this is a really interesting fight. You're right, and it should hopefully bring a lot of it. It's not getting much attention, but that's just the way things are in the world right now. But I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting fight, and I don't think there's any doubt that Povetkin is the more skilled guy.
Yeah, no, I agree, and Whyte is a very determined guy. He's a character. He's got some skills, but Povetkin, yeah, you're right. If it was 2012, for sure. This Povetkin, this 2020 Povetkin, 40-year-old Povetkin, Whyte, I guess you say Whyte has an edge, but that's what makes it interesting is we don't know 100% sure, and that we'll find out. And that's what makes boxing so great.
All right, so who do you got in this fight, John?
Well, I'm going to go with Whyte only because of the mostly the age thing and the wear and tear. I just think that he might wear him down. If Povetkin gets him, I think he gets him earlier. But if the fight goes longer, I think Whyte could stop him late. But I got to give the edge to Dillian Whyte. Mostly not like you said, not a skill thing, more just an age thing and a wear and tear thing.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Whyte. I mean, the one thing that did impress me is Povetkin did weather an early violent storm against Hunter and then came on a little bit later and actually looked pretty good midway through the fight and later into the fight. I think Whyte wins this by a unanimous decision, but a close one. The question is, how long does Dillian Whyte have to wait to get a shot at the heavyweight championship? He's been the number one contender since, I think, Jack Johnson.
Before that, maybe. He lets everybody know it. He lets everybody know it all the time. He'll get a shot next year, hopefully. I don't know with all the politics in boxing. Who knows? But he wins a fight. He deserves a shot at the heavyweight title, and he probably should fight Joshua again if he can't get Fury, because that was their first fight was a good fight. But I agree. I mean, a stoppage or a decision definitely for Whyte.
And on the undercard, you got Delphine Persoon in the rematch against Katie Taylor. This is a fight that I did not think Taylor won. I didn't think it was controversial. I thought it was a close fight, but I thought Katie Taylor came up short against Persoon the first time.
I did too. I wrote in the article. I like Katie Taylor. I admire her. She's got a great background story. She's a hell of a boxer, but Pearson was just too strong in that fight, if you remember, and she just kept coming, and Katie would box and move and do all her things, but it was just obvious. It was like in any kind of sport, when you face somebody who's stronger than you, it's difficult to keep them off you. And she was really having a hard time. And I thought Pearson deserved it. I wasn't surprised that Katie got the decision because that's boxing a lot of times, unfortunately. But, yeah, I agree with you. I thought Delphine Pearson won the first fight. And the second one is really going to be interesting. I give it to Katie for taking it because, this is a fight that nowadays some fighters wouldn't take. When you had a really rough first fight, you're like, nah, I'm staying away. Now, that's not what boxing is supposed to be about. So I give her kudos for that, and I think it's definitely going to be another good one.
Do you think those boxing skills are enough to keep Pursuit off of her so she doesn't have to go to war with her? Because I think it's a fight that if it becomes a brawl again, Pursuit's just too strong for her.
I think Katie will be better in this fight. I do. I think she's very skillful. I think she's very determined and motivated. And she might not have, I'm just speculating, she might not have been as motivated in the first fight, but this one, there's been some, for Katie Taylor and for Delphine, some trash talking. So that has gone down a little, and I think if anything, made Katie Taylor more determined to show that she's the better fighter. And probably what'll happen, just speculating here, is that she'll get off to a lead with her boxing ability, and then if she starts to tire a little around round 5 or 6, here comes Pearson. So it's going to be like that again, unless Katie is just in such great shape that she can sustain, and she will mostly. But as we both said, Pearson is really, really strong and also very determined. So it's going to be hard to keep her away consistently, and that's the problem.
So does Katie win the rematch?
Yeah, I think she does. I think she wins another close decision. I think, like we said, we don't think she won the first fight, but I think she wins it. It'll probably still be a little controversial, but I think her boxing ability, fighting at Eddie Hearn's backyard, certainly doesn't hurt. But I think she's going to win it. I like I said, I think my thinking is the brain power here of hers, the stylistic, the matchup. The plan that she has will be more effective this time, but it's going to be tough.
Yeah, I like Taylor too. I think
Can't hear a thing, Mike. There you are.
Are you feeling that dead air time?
No, I just said can't hear a thing, Mike. I would have. I should have kept talking.
Watch what you say.
About blood on my notebook, huh?
You don't want to be Tom Brenneman, so you got to watch that.
That's right. No, that's right. I kept my mouth shut.
Yeah, so I think Taylor, like I said, I think she has more capability to up her game here than Pursoon. I think Pursoon, what you see is what you get.
Yeah, that's it. And again, I think there's an extra determination with Taylor. I mean, there always is with boxers, but I think she feels like she's got more to prove. And as we know, sometimes, most of the time, I believe, when an athlete feels like they have more to prove, they're better. And she knows what to expect this time, so all that's going to help her.
Well, the other thing is, I think really good fighters learn more from a loss and become and elevate their game, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure she learned a lot from that one, and she gets a little annoyed when people say that they thought she lost it. But go back and watch the tape and be honest. That was I thought she lost. I did. I thought she lost. I did.
She lost. All right, next up, we got Elinier Alvarez against Joe Smith Jr. Joe Smith Jr. is coming off a win over Jesse Hart. Of course, he lost before that to Dimitri Bivol, but I actually thought the Bivol fight, I was impressed with him maybe as much as I've ever been.
Joe Smith is old school. You know, that's why you got to love the guy. He's hard scrabble. You know, he brings his toolbox to work and he just fights, and that's what he is. He took some real hard shots against Bivol. I mean, some really, really hard shots, Mike, and hung in really like grim death. It was no doubt that he lost, but he fought hard. And then in his last fight, he fought Jesse Hart, and I believe he was the underdog going into that one, and he won it. He looked really good. So I really like Joe Smith. I think he's a tough dude, but Alvarez has some real good skill. And the problem with him is he's a counterpuncher, and that's going to be tough for Joe Smith to deal with it. He's definitely the better boxer. Most are better boxers than Joe, but Joe is a super tough guy, and he's going to give it 1,000,000%. You got to admire that.
Yeah, and Alvarez is a guy who fought Sergey Kovalev twice.
That's right. He fought Kovalev, and he won him. He stopped him, knocked him out. And then the second fight was he waited too much. Kovalev boxed him and won the decision, and it was a great achievement for Sergey Kovalev. But Alvarez, if he waits too long, it's going to hurt him in this fight. He might get outworked by Joe Smith. I mean, you give him the edge because he's technique and he's a better boxer in that sense. But this is another one that I've been looking forward to since it was announced, because I think it was postponed once. It's a matchup of different styles, and it should be a real interesting. We'll see what Joe Smith can do against a guy who'll probably box him more than slug with him.
I think Joe Smith knocks him out.
You do?
Why not? Hell, nobody else will pick him, so I will.
Sounds like you, Mike.
And then next up, we've got Sean Porter. What's your take on the Sean Porter fight, which I think that's a Fox Network, isn't it?
It is a Fox Network fight, and I like Sean Porter too. He's class act outside the ring too. Him and his dad Ken are great. He should win this. This is no more, I believe, than a showcase fight. Set him up for some bigger fights down the road. Maybe he'll get a rematch with Errol Spence after Errol fights Danny Garcia. So I think he wins it. He should win it. He's still Sean Porter. He's still ranked, obviously in the top 5. He's the way he fights. Nobody really wants to fight him because he's getting into you right out after you walk out of the locker room. So he's right there all the time, and in a way that's good, but in a way that's not good. He's an irritating fighter. That's what I would think if I was fighting him. God, get away from me, man. But what he does it really well. So always fun to watch Sean fight.
And he's fighting Sebastian Formula?
Yeah. What's the formula for him to win?
If you're on your computer, get on BoxRec and punch in the kid's name and look at the picture and tell me what kind of chance he's got.
Well, yeah, there is that. There is that. I've barely even heard of him. I don't think most boxing people have heard of him unless you're really into it. He's not going to win. I think Porter's going to probably stop him. Porter says he's in great shape. He almost always is. So if he is, he definitely will win. I believe after a few rounds, it'll be pretty easy for him to walk all over Formula and stop it.
All right. So what do you think of Canelo Alvarez's next fight, if this is who it's going to be?
It's ridiculous. I mean, I don't know what that's all about. No, I read that DAZN said no, they won't approve it. Good for DAZN. I mean, come on, man. There's a lot of guys out there. I mean, I wanted him to fight Callum Smith. I thought that was a really interesting fight, and Callum Smith didn't look very good in his last fight, so that was kind of a problematical because he got pushed back like Canelo might do, and Callum didn't go back. He didn't move backwards very well. He looked very uncomfortable, but he's taller and he's got skills, so I was looking forward to that. Before that, we were looking at Billy Joe Saunders, but Billy Joe is so self-destructive. Who knows? Who knows what he's going to end up doing from day to day. So he's just got to fight. I mean, the Charlos are there. He's got to fight, or Andre is there. He's got to fight somebody like that. I'm getting tired of these shop-worn guys that they're bringing in for him to fight. Probably fight Golovkin again next year, which is ridiculous. Golovkin definitely won one of those fights for sure. You could even make an argument that he won both of them. Okay, there you go. So I don't understand this. If you want to be the best fighter in the world, you got to stop with some of these fights. You got to fight the other best guys, whoever that is, unless, as you said earlier, Mike, he decides that he wants to fight his promoter, and that might be kind of fun to watch them go at it because there's a little bit of bad blood going on there, I think.
Yeah, next, if we could get on the undercard, Larry Holmes versus Don King, I think that would be perfect.
There'd be a big line to probably beat the crap out of Don King. A lot of boxing fans as well. Mike Tyson would be there for sure, too. So, yeah, Don King's – it's his birthday today. He's 89.
That's a damn shame. I hate to say that. But what do you think? It looks like Ryan Garcia and Luke Campbell set for November.
I like that fight. I really like Luke Campbell. He fights all the tough guys, obviously. Ryan gets better and better. He's with Reynoso for a while now, and he looks better and better. He should be better. He's like a modern day, in a sense, Oscar, but not nearly as good as Oscar, obviously, at this point. But I'm saying with the looks and the way he's able to sell himself and all that, he really plays the social media game good. People get mad at him about that. But he can fight. He's improving and looked good in his last few fights. And Luke Campbell, gold medalist, solid fighter all the way as a pro, and lost to Lomachenko. Buzzed Lomachenko late in the fight. People probably don't really hit him with an uppercut. It definitely bothered Lomachenko. Gutsy too, boyish. Doesn't look like he could beat the stuffing out of anything, but he's tough. He's a tough guy, so he'll give Ryan Garcia a run for his money.
I think this is the fight where we find out exactly what Ryan Garcia is made of, if he's that good of a fighter.
We should, because Campbell is seasoned and he's been in with better fighters, obviously, than Garcia. So we should be able to figure that out pretty quickly. I think Garcia likely wins just because he's on a roll. He's younger again and maybe a little faster. But the longer the fight goes, because Campbell showed in the Linares fight that he got knocked down. He was way behind. He came back and he almost beat Linares. So there's no quitting that guy. He's going to keep coming and fighting hard, and Garcia better be on his A game.
All right, what was your take on Cecilia Breakhouse losing to McCaskill last weekend?
I watched the fight. Very hard, Sergio Garcia, I think it was Sergio Mora. Sergio Mora made the point about the 2-minute rounds and 3 minutes. Harder to judge them because they're only 2-minute rounds. A sloppy fight, not a good fight, to be honest. Not an impressive fight. I didn't understand what Breakus was doing. I thought she'd box more, but she was staying close with McCaskill, who's a determined person who from Chicago, man. So, I like that. But it was an ugly fight. I actually was surprised that McCaskill got the decision. I thought Breakus would get the decision, maybe a split decision. But it wasn't anything either of them would brag about, I think. McCaskill's got the titles. Katie Taylor beat her before. Now Eddie Hearn is talking about a rematch between Breakus and McCaskill. It's good, unless Breakus retires, fine. But it wasn't one of those. It wasn't even close to the Harper fight, on DAZN from a few weeks ago. That fight, Harper engaged in was actually one of the better fights that I've seen where there's only 2. I think they definitely need to go to 3-minute rounds. I think everybody wants it. Suleiman needs to lift that and let the ladies go 3 minutes. They should. Why not? Let them do it.
Yeah. If you're going to box, you might as well do it for real.
Right.
All right. So we usually do it on this day or on this week, especially for Inside Boxing Weekly. And I got a message the night before last from a friend of mine who's been on the show a bunch of times by the name of Peter McNeely. And he was telling me, number one, I want to congratulate him. He just got married. He moved. He changed his phone number, so he texted me to let me know about that. And then he said, if you ever want me to come on the show, come on there. He said, remember this. He said, who did Mike Tyson fight, back in 1996 on this day starting tomorrow? And, of course, August 19th, Mike Tyson fought Peter McNeely in an epic encounter, John.
Yeah, but you know what?
There's a good chance Peter's going to watch this and he'll say nothing bad.
No, seriously, Peter did everything he could. I mean, he went all for it. Balls to the walls. I mean, he went for it when Tyson was giving him that glare. I'll never forget that. And Peter smiled at him, and Tyson's doing that whole staring thing, and then he came out and he went punch to punch with him. So anybody that's man enough to do that with that Tyson, even though this was a comeback Tyson, makes no difference. Tyson knocks guys out, knocks guys into tomorrow with nothing. respect for Peter, respect for his old man, respect for his dad, who was a good fighter too. So, Tom, so Peter McNeely, yeah, not kissing your butt here, but you went out like a fighter should, where you go out on your shield. You gave it everything you got. So even though they only lasted a round, no matter, it was still you give something all you got, in my opinion. What more can you do?
It's a better effort than Bruce Seldon gave a few years later. It's a better effort than Frank Bruno gave the second time they fought, where both of those guys were scared to death. And the thing is this, when you get in a boxing ring, you got to have a little bit of fear, but it says a lot about a man when he can actually run into that fear instead of run away and just try to survive.
Totally perfectly said. Yeah, and that's what he did, and there are some that don't. And you're right, Bruce Seldon, I think his chin was iffy anyway, and he got hit with one, and he said, that's it, I'm done. I remember that.
I don't know whether he got hit with one, to tell you the truth, John.
Did he even get hit? Yeah, he didn't get up.
He got hit.
Yeah, so he should be embarrassed if anybody else, but McNeely, nothing to be embarrassed about. He did his best. He made a little money. Seems to be doing well now, so that's great. And, boxing is such a brutal sport, tough sport. He comes back. Mike Tyson comes back to fight him. He did everything he could do. Nothing to be ashamed of.
And Don King didn't sell the racist aspect of it again during that fight, pre-fight build-up either, did he?
No. He never did that. It just was two guys fighting each other. That's been going on for so long, and that is not helpful at all. But, it was Tyson's comeback fight.
Helpful making money, John.
Yeah, helpful in making money. You're right. See, you're a good businessman.
Yeah,
that's right.
I think that if Fury and Wilder are going to fight in December, they need to bring Don King back to really sell it. During these days and times, you might be able to make that $1 billion fight.
God, it wouldn't surprise me. Especially, I don't know where they're going to fight yet, but they're supposed to fight in December, right? So it's like nothing is being confirmed. They might wait until they have fans in the seats again, and that'd be next year at the earliest. So I want that fight with Fury and Wilder, and I want Joshua to fight Fury eventually too. But I want people in the stands. That's one thing we haven't talked about too much. It's still, you and me talked about that on the phone. It's so bizarre watching any sport we love like baseball. It's going to be weird watching football in a few weeks. Boxing, I've gotten used to there not being any fans there, but it's so strange. It's almost like when I used to go into the gym and watch guys spar. There's just a few people there, and some are paying attention, some aren't. So it's strange. I'll take it because the fights are very good. I'm kind of getting used to it a little bit, but it's really not what it's supposed to be, and that's what makes it so difficult.
I put it like this. When the NFL starts, if there's no crowd, the Buccaneers are playing the Saints in New Orleans, Breeze against Brady, and no crowd, I don't even know that I really care then.
Yeah, I will watch only because it's Breeze and Brady, but
you're going to watch because there's nothing else on then. Because
there's that. There is that. But two great quarterbacks, obviously Hall of Fame quarterbacks. I watch my Bears with nobody there, and that's okay. But it is very bizarre, and that's been everything in sports right now is bizarre. So we're just going along the same route here.
See, the good thing for me, I'm a Bengals fan. There's usually nobody at the games, so it'll be the same thing for me.
Well, you got your quarterback, which ought to be fun to see how he does in his first year. And he's got talent, but, the move from the college to the pro game is always a challenge. And I don't know what kind of help.
Trubisky is it a challenge, John?
Oh, come on now. I'll bring my boy Mitch in there.
Your boy Mitch? He probably
not even. I like Mitch. I like him as a person. Whether he starts or not, it's probably not going to happen.
You don't know him as a person, John. He might be an arrogant prick.
I've never heard that, but you know how it is.
All right. Did we miss anything boxing-wise we need to talk about?
No, I think we got it other than a few technical difficulties, and I didn't say anything off color while you went away, so that's good. But no, this is the best weekend we've had in boxing, like you said, for months and months. I hope people tune in. We got some big fights. We got Lomo and Lopez coming in October. Can't wait for that one.
Is that no crowd?
Huh?
Is that no crowd?
No crowd.
Shit.
No crowd, but still going to be fascinating to watch.
Does that mean they're going to charge more for the pay-per-view?
No pay-per-view. It's going to be on ESPN. So far, no changes. It's all going to be on ESPN. People are going to be able to watch it. That's great.
All right. So what are the fights they got pay-per-view? I know you got the Tyson Jones, which is supposed to be in November now, even though Jones is probably going to end up backing out of it. But are there any other pay-per-view fights set up?
Not really. Our guy, Daniel Dubois, fights next weekend, and then he's going to fight Joe Joyce. I don't think that's a pay-per-view, but that's another one that I'm really looking forward to seeing, Joe Joyce and Daniel Dubois. So Dubois next weekend is fighting in England. So they're setting it up. You know, Joyce fought and won by a knockout. Now Dubois will probably win by a knockout. So they're getting it all set up for their big encounter a few months down the road.
All right, guys, if you're bored with the lack of boxing on TV, make sure you go check out Blood on My Notebook on Amazon.
Yes.
With the esteemed John Raspanti,
Thank you.
best-selling author, top 10 best-selling authors that we've ever had on our show, because we've had like 6. So you're top 10.
You know me, I'll take anything, so I'll take it. But thanks, Mike.
All right. Also, you're the main guy at maxboxing.com also, correct? And I did read an article about Pursoon and Taylor today, and as always, it was well written, so I suggest anybody go check out maxboxing.com also.
Am I missing
anything, John? Anything else you need to plug?
Yeah, I will. I wrote one about Tammy Morella and Joe Louis that I called The Night Tammy Morella Staggered a Legend, and that one was a blast. I love to write the old ones. And that was when that.
I didn't see that one. I would have read that.
Yeah, okay. I'll send it to you. Yeah, and it was fun to write. I found a great photo for it, and I love that one. So yeah, I'll send you that one, Mike. It got a little response. I was happy about that. I mean, I'm sure people go, "What's he doing writing about something that happened in 1946?" But I love all that stuff. So
me too. That's why I would have read it. I'm the one guy that'll read it when you write it.
I got to make sure I tag you for sure on Facebook.
All right, guys. Me and John will be back. What day are we coming? Are we doing this next week?
It's always about the schedule with you, Mike. Everything going on, and then me too, somewhat. But yeah, I want to keep doing this because these are fun. Yeah, keep following Twitter. We will be back next week to review all these fights. We'll preview whatever is going on next week, whatever that may be. Maybe it'll be Oscar. It'll be fighting Mike Tyson. We'll call it a maybe it'll be a pantyhose or lingerie match. Whatever, we'll talk about it. You know, we had to go there. If we're talking about Oscar, you had to bring up the lingerie. That's right. But all right, guys, make sure you check out the NFL show in about a half hour live with me and Sam Teets. We're going to discuss the guys we believe should be in the NFL Hall of Fame who are not. And John, you can always come on if you want, if you got nothing else to do. I can't hang with you guys at the NFL. I mean, I can't. I was just trying to think who should be in the NFL. Right, I'd have to think for probably 10 minutes before some of the names would start popping. Well, we got 27 before the show starts. But make sure you check us out there. Make sure you check out all of our shows. You can view them all on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, Twitch, other places I can't even pronounce. And you can hear all of our podcasts on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify. Wherever you find podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for now, for John Raspanti, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been watching The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.